Good morning, everybody. In theory, we are recording this session, and if we are, it's intentional. I'm Eric Nutting with the Growth Coach of St. Petersburg, Florida, and a proud member of the Sun Leaders. And we have a fantastic group of Sun Leaders with us, and we also have Sun Readers. So that's what this is about. I'm excited to jump into this discussion. It's our third discussion on Finding Your Lighthouse, a leadership guide to navigating change. Our authors, Janean, Markle, Perelstein. And Janean, let me just turn it over to you. Say good morning, hello, and introduce yourself in the book.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Eric. I'm Janean, and I am a success coach as well as a consultant. I own a consultant agency with my husband called Alchemy Academy. We've been in business for 15 years, helping people stand in their strength, ensure that they are well positioned to really be the powerful, recognized leaders that they're meant to be, that they know they can be. And we also help organizations through institutional change and ensure that the strategies and operations are matching the leadership and workplace culture that they provide. I myself am a sociocultural anthropologist, and I view business and success growth through the lens of anthropology. So that's much of the discussions that we've been having, and certainly a big theme in the book that I've written, Finding Your Lighthouse, that we're discussing here.
Well, I love the term success coach. I was actually scribbled that down to talk a little bit about that. So I'm glad that you kind of came out of the gate with that. I mentioned this is our third discussion because we broke this book up in thirds. So I'm excited to get into it. We're going to let you do your thing in just a moment. But quickly, I'd like to go around the horn here and get introductions for everybody that's online with us. And I'm just going to go across on my screen. Carol, I see you on my screen first, so fire away, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Carol Jones Hasbrook, and I have a company called Your Home Within, guiding you to purpose, place, and passion. And that was just created 30 seconds ago from my dear friend Kate. So that's what we're going with.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Scott, you're next on my screen.
Good morning, y'all. Scott Perelstein, Alchemy Academy. We help teams and groups end up with better productivity and higher profits with the employees they already have. Success coach and consultant for operating businesses from single solopreneurs up to Fortune 500 companies.
Scott and I said we wanted to be quick about this, but you know Janean, right?
And husband of 15 years in business, Alchemy Academy, star and author Janean Merkel Perelstein.
Awesome. Carrie, the jingle writer, I know that you're multitasking with cabinets and stuff. So if you're there, say hello. And if you're not, I'm going to move on. All right, Mr. Jingle Writer, I think he's busy. So Carrie Reich, jingle writer, really for all of your jingle writing needs, which helps you with branding and kind of defining your business. He does brilliant work. David, Carrie, you want to do a quick intro for yourself?
Yeah, I was hearing you very lightly because I'm kind of done, but sure. I missed all the other ones because I was trying to explain what's going on here. What's the prompt?
Just a quick intro of yourself.
Oh, a quick intro of myself. Well, I usually do that in song. I am the jingle writer, your top line provider. Okay. Yeah, so I am your connector. I want to thank Carol for forcing me to come up with what my purpose in life is in 20 minutes. That was fun. Anyway, I connect clients I connect businesses to their clients, really, and vice versa. So I make I make the melodies that make you remember your business. So when people need you, they think of you first.
Carrie, that was the longest short intro ever.
You can tell I'm wait a minute. Can I do a little Mike Mouse? I'm a little verklempt.
No.
All right. Thank you. Please be safe.
Okay. No, I am.
You are next on my screen.
I am David Pavone. I'm the relationship manager at Name and Creative and also a proud Sun leader.
Awesome. Good to see you. Adam, you're next on my screen.
Yeah, I'm Adam Morris. I'm founder and CEO of Be Smart Accounting. We do bookkeeping for small businesses, and I'm the treasurer of Sun Leaders.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. All right, let's get into it. Janine, we're yours. Take us.
Fabulous. Well, I'll pick up where we left off with being a success coach, and tie into that the themes that both Carol and Carrie have talked about, and that is purpose. And the reason why I want to start here is because some of the background work that we've been doing in the exercises within Finding Your Lighthouse is and what's necessary for this next step is becoming crystal clear on those two things. What does success mean to you? I'll pause here for just a second and just talk a little bit about the fact that we all have our own ideas of success, and that's appropriate. That's perfect. They are often culturally bound, which means that we're gifted to them, these ideas, these beliefs about what's successful and what's not. And they're personal, they're individual. We learn much of our unique subculture from our family, from our experiences, from our lifetimes. And so because of that, our unique vision of what success is varies dramatically from person to person. And so, a lot of people, when I first start meeting with them, they'll say, oh yeah, I know what success is. And then when they go to really write it down, they take some time with it, and some new concepts and ideas start unraveling. And I want you in the process of this to focus on what ideas about success and also purpose, which we'll get to in just a second, perhaps have been fed to you, but really aren't appropriate for who you are as a leader, as an individual. So that's one point. Then going on to purpose. And purpose is the thing that drives you. It's the fuel that keeps your fire going. I have a training within my year-long mastermind clients we go through about passion and purpose getting us to our mission. And I talk about how passion is like the kindling on the fire. It burns quick and it's exciting, and sometimes there's like the pyrotechnics that go off, and it's fun. But purpose is like the big logs that burn slowly and that feed everything. And when you have a clearly defined purpose, which can lead you into a clearly defined mission, that's what gets you up in the morning. That's where that everything that you do, from all of your goal setting to the way that you structure your day, to thinking about what leads you to success and what holds you back from success, really needs to have some guardrails. And you find those guardrails by identifying your purpose. So I love that Carol and Carrie brought up purpose already this morning. It's such a big piece of things. So with success and purpose kind of in the bag, now that we've got it, and I'll just share my own purpose. It really hasn't changed in the 15 years that I've run this business. It has always been to help people play a bigger game in life and to give them the tools to do it well so that they're happy and thriving. And so with that, now we work on to these next stages of change. And this is where the last two sections of the book are about, one, inviting success. And this is exactly what to do. I'll walk you through the process in just a minute. Exactly what to do to rewire your brain, to change the filters between your subconscious mind and your conscious mind, to ensure that you're traveling the journey towards success, towards your purpose, and not creating gunk in the gears that hold you back from it. Then we go into the welcoming abundance section, which is truly, and by that I mean abundance in every area of your life: physical vitality, the legacy you leave behind, the relationships that you have, and of course, material wealth, if that is included in your definition of success. And these are the things that you do in your life that ensure, once you've got that little piece of of joy and a little successful nugget that you don't let it slip through your fingers. You are welcoming of it. You're inviting it. You're welcoming it. You're keeping it in your home, in yourself. And then you perpetuate the process and carry on the momentum. So I want to pause there and just see if there are any thoughts or ideas or ahas that have come out of what you've done up until now with this material and what you're looking at moving forward.
I'm going to jump in and just say that this really resonates with me. And I've said it before. I'm a fellow coach, and I tell everyone that coaches need coaches. And so to hear some of these things that I work on kind of come back to me is really powerful for me. And I work with purpose all the time, but my personal purpose is shifting. And I find this really interesting in conversations. So, I mean, it used to be all about kids and supporting kids, and they don't need me as much as they used to. And I found myself to be kind of wandering a little bit. What do you do when people kind of shift, when their purpose does shift a little bit?
It's so good. When we develop some level of mastery in our lives, as we do, we're all of an age where we have achieved mastery in some levels of our lives. We have successful careers. We're kind of rocking and rolling in some areas. It's so easy to tell ourselves the story that we have moved beyond the beginner's mindset. We've moved beyond the need to be a beginner at something, particularly being a beginner at the very thing that you help other people with. That is one of the most humbling moments and kind of difficult things to do to get out of your own way. And yet it is often some of the most revealing work that you can do if you remind yourself of the fact that becoming a beginner again will reveal a whole new layer of revelation, of growth. I think that this group here, we've had lots of discussion about the word integrity, and integrity simply means that you're operating in accordance with your own values. And if you want to be in integrity with what you do, Eric, specifically as a coach, I believe that as a growth coach, you are saying to everyone that you yourself are dedicated to the ideas of growth. And the difficult thing, and I say this because I know it in my heart, the difficult thing as a coach for me is to remember that facing growth anew, facing some, a foundational principle anew, we have two choices. We can either be down on ourselves of like, why am I going through this again? I've already been here before. Surely I should be a little farther down the path. Or we can say, oh my gosh, how lucky am I? I've revealed something new about myself. On this fantastic journey that I am on, I've revealed something about ourselves. And the thing about being humans is that we simply cannot read our own label from inside the bottle. We require community to reflect back on us. You mentioned coaches need coaches. Yeah, that's why I have a coach. That's why my coach has a coach. And it turtles all the way down. Like we really are. We're creatures of community, and we're buoyed by that. And so I would say, specifically going back to your original question, Eric, that rediscovering your own purpose, I think the truest gems are going to be found in your own work, in making yourself do the foundational exercises that you tell your clients every single day. It's hard. I'll go back and I'll listen to one of my old programs and I'm like, oh, shut up, Janine. but I also think, all right, when I look at this through the lens of who I am today, now new things can reveal themselves, and it's powerful work.
Very, very helpful. I love that. Thank you for that. And as you were kind of talking me through that, it reminds me that when we talk about beginning again or new beginnings, we often have to let something go. And that's kind of the hard part.
We're always
Oh, Eric.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, you really nailed it with that one. That's exactly right. Ding, ding, ding. We have to be willing to say goodbye to the old version of ourselves or some idea of ourselves that we thought was true. And we have to face these false truths. And that's much about, this deeper work that's included in finding your lighthouse is revealing to yourself, some of the lies that we tell ourselves, some of the mistaken beliefs that we've held on to, and so many of them served us at one point in our life.
right.
And they just simply don't serve us anymore. And if we forget to go back and reevaluate those things over and over again, we'll be stuck in a version of ourselves that's old and outdated and cannot support the new level of growth that we're going for, that we're reaching for in this new phase. And I know, I know all of you on this call are currently working toward something big, something new. And so that's going to require you to say goodbye to the old version of you and step boldly into who you're meant to be, not who you were. That's a thing. It takes some doing. So
just as a quick joke, I'm still telling kids to clean their rooms, but there's no kids living at the house.
Well,
no.
time to change.
some of us are the kid, and our spouse is the parent telling us to clean our room. Just want to be clear that never stops. That never stops. But it's very interesting how all these different things just kind of come all together. And like this week, just completely out of the blue, I decided I wanted to look for a quick something new to read. And I don't even know why the 7 spiritual laws of success were on my shelf. In fact, a former partner of mine's name is inscribed in the front of the book. He must have sent it to me at some point.
Yeah.
But there's so much in there that is what we're talking about. Then earlier this week in my one of those daily sessions I listened to, he was talking about that our self a year from now doesn't know us, doesn't recognize us. And literally the exercise was, number one, sending a letter to that person, thanking them for what you're doing now to have gotten them to where they are a year from now. And then writing a different letter, dear future me, I promise to ... And I
love that.
These are, it's, yeah. And it's, you talk about, and then there's the whole, I think I've shared this in other chats with the guys from the Kabbalah Center talking about, we're all a piece of one giant spirit or, soul, if you will. And the same thing with with Deepak Chopra's book, where, we're all, it's all about, like you said, is your purpose you're talking about is doing what you're meant to be. I think the challenge is really figuring it out and digging in and going, okay, because like you said, I mean, your purpose today may be different than it was 10 years ago or 10 years from now or 5 years from now, or in this case, 1 year from now. And really trying to figure out, okay, do we just sit and meditate? Okay, God, bring it on. I'm ready. Tell me.
Yeah.
So
Right.
That to me is the biggest challenge.
Yeah. Carol,
Yes. So, Kara, I wonder if you could reword that from challenge to the joy, because really the joy, for me, the joy is in the process of figuring this out. I'm never going to get it. I'm never going to get it all right. Or I shouldn't say that. Never is a long time. Maybe someday I'll have it all figured out. I'll know my purpose. I'll be living my purpose. For me, it's not a challenge so much as it's a joy in the process, because I get to hang out with people like you guys.
it becomes a get to, not a have to.
Yeah. So I just invite you to look at the wording of that. Instead of using challenge, try to maybe change that to joy.
Yeah. There are 2 exercises that I do that kind of relate with what we were just talking about. And one of them happens in meditation. You all know I'm a huge fan of meditation. We're going to talk more about that in just a minute. But in meditation, I approach a future version of me, and I sit down in a beautiful place and I have a conversation with the me 5 years from now who already has achieved all of the things that I'm looking for. And I say, how'd you do it? what happened? Tell me the story of you being successful you. And it's amazing the insightful nuggets that I get from her, and the love and appreciation for doing the work, for staying in it, staying in this process of growth. And that's a beautiful meditation. The other exercise comes from Jack Canfield's work in the Success Principle, and it's about remembering forward. And so it's a writing exercise where it's kind of like a journal entry of the stuff that has yet to happen. Like, remember when we got that check for $1 million in the mail, and it just surprised the heck out of us. And it was really life-changing. And in that moment, I decided that whatever, but you remember forward. And by doing that, it ticks in some of the principles that are included in rewiring your brain, which is where I'd like to go next. So in the formula that is required for changing the neurocircuitry in your brain, we've done the foundational step, which is figuring out what limiting beliefs we want to get rid of. Let those synapses atrophy. And then we want to build new synapses. We want to rewire our brain for the beliefs that do serve us in our next phase. So having done that work, now that we've gotten clarity on where we're going, who we are, there are specific steps, and certainly we can use grit and determination to do this. But if you're using grit and determination, you are only deploying about 4% of your brain's capacity to help you along this path. And you're very subject to the forces of nature, external environments, to throw you off your course. So what I'm a fan of is ensuring that you fundamentally change from the inside. So best done when you have access to the operating system, which happens in a lower brainwave frequency. Right now, we're all in the beta brainwave frequency. If we were to lower that down to alpha or theta, now we have access to the operating system. It's kind of like, going into the back end in your website, or maybe even just taking the panel off of the computer so you can go get to work. It's the access point for change to happen. And it really only happens when you're in these brainwave states. So this is why I am uncompromising about my meditation. Scott and I woke up this morning at prior to 6 a.m. for our meditations. I meditated for an hour and a half, and I am uncompromising about the fact that this is the key to where I do my work. From within that, then we speak to our brain in the language of pictures. And the reason that we do that is because, as somebody who has studied linguistics, language has so much different meaning, and meanings of words change throughout time, and it starts triggering thought processes of who we are, who we've been. We don't want to be thinking about who we've been. We want to be thinking about who we're becoming. So this is where I like to use visualization techniques. If you've done the work and you're figuring out what beliefs you want to hardwire into your brain, I want you to become that fiction writer and write out a scene of where you are when you realize that all of your dreams have come true, and make it as flourished as possible. As include your senses, and here's where I am, and here's what's all around me, and here's what I'm looking at, and here's what I'm hearing. And I want you to be able to, in that meditative state, really think about that scene and become it. And not as a sense of you looking down on yourself in that scene, but of you looking out your own eyes and being in that scene, again, in this meditative state. And then the third component to this deep, deep change is to do it with emotion. I always tell the story of, do you remember has everybody here seen the movie Monsters, Inc.? It was long ago. And in the movie Monsters, Inc., they powered their city with fear. And fear was this heightened emotion. And they figured out that if the kids were screaming in fear, they could bottle it up and use it as energy. And in fact, that's absolutely true. When we put out fear, we are putting out a tremendous signature of energy, and it will wire your brain quicker. Have you ever heard of a traumatic response and somebody will say the words, "It is burned into my memory forever"? This happens because when you're in a heightened emotional response, you're emitting a biochemical soup into your brain that ensures that those synapses are wired, hardwired. Having said that, going back to Monsters, Inc., remember I'm going to reveal the punchline of the movie. At the very end, they realize that joy and laughter actually produces 10 times the energy that fear does. So I'm going to use Monsters, Inc. rules, because if we're going to use fiction to write our story of success, use the Monsters, Inc. rules, overlay that with the emotion of joy, with happiness, with love, with the emotional response that will trigger the biochemical soup of success into your brain, which will help hardwire those synapses in a more solid way. So that when you do come back into the beta brainwave state where we all are right now, we are operating from a whole new operating system. Now we are fundamentally a different person. We can operate from different beliefs. And remember, your behaviors will always be informed by your beliefs. In times of stress, we will sink to the level of our beliefs. And that's why using grit and determination to change your behaviors only lasts so long. But if we fundamentally change on the level of our brains, our wiring, our programming, our systems, and we go to behave in accordance with these new beliefs, now we start finding ourselves doing things that we've never done before. Because yes, it's so inviting to think that, you can sit in a meditative state and imagine all the joy happening to you and all the good stuff happening to you, and wake up in the world and say like, okay, I'm going to sit on the couch and I'm going to wait for that truck of all the beautiful things going to pull up in front of my house and deliver goodness to me. But in fact, we actually have to be in motion. We actually have to, in our lives today, in our very real workaday world lives, we have to be in motion, doing the things that get us in direction of our goals. We've got to behave in accordance with our beliefs that keep us there. And it's that combination now that I believe and I have seen over and over and over again, and is now scientifically proven to work without fail when done consistently, done well, and done with joy.
Here's a fact. The longer a website takes to load, the lower its conversion rate is. What you probably don't know is that a 1-second delay in a page load can result in a 7% reduction in conversions. And if you reduce a page load time by just 100 milliseconds, it results in over a 1% increase in conversions. Improving website speeds directly impacts lead gen, rankings, and overall sales. Are you complaining about your website's performance? Contact Name & Creative today at info@nameandcreative.com or visit our website at nameandcreative.com to learn how we make sure our clients' websites are running smooth.
So we talk about changing our belief system, and that is something that you speak to a lot. And you're telling us to really work on that belief system, we have to think about the alpha and theta state. Is that what you're telling us?
Yes. To really hardwire it into your brain, it's easiest to do it. I don't want to say it's impossible to do it, because we've all used grit and determination to change in different periods of our life, and there are ways to hack it and such. But if you really want to go on the quicker path, if you want to make it easier for yourself. And this is the way to do it. And look, I don't want to suggest that getting into a meditative state is easy.
Mm-hmm.
They call it a practice for a reason.
That's where the determination comes in, isn't it? Making sure you commit to that process.
You use one for the other. You use the 4% of your brain in that grit and determination state to create the plan for yourself to go. I have to use some level of discipline some willpower in order to wake up, at 6 a.m. to meditate every day. I do, because I will, I'll default to sleep. And so I use both. And I really don't want you to think that it's all airy fairy, like once you've got this, because it's a practice. It really is. And it works, and it's worthwhile. And I believe in it, and I have, even since writing this book, when there's the chapter in this book about meditation. I believed in it then, but I could really only do, short periods of time with meditation, and kind of sporadically. And it wasn't until I found myself thinking about this word, what does uncompromising mean to me? And leaning in that way, that I started to see fundamental change that I could count on.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where it gets really fun. And this is why, I have clients calling me all the time saying, you're not going to believe what happened to me. And I'm like, bring it on. I bet I will. It'll be magical, and it'll seem like it came out of the blue, and you couldn't have imagined that this happened, but it did, because you are a fundamentally different person.
So we have, we spoke about affirming purpose, inviting success, and welcoming abundance. And a lot of that future work is the welcoming abundance portion, right?
Right. Exactly. Eric, once you have done this work and you start seeing it work, you really want to ensure that you're not slipping back into everyday life, who you used to be, who you were. It's the siren song. I mean, it is your brain's job to keep you safe, which it thinks means keeping things normal and keeping things usual. And so it will seduce you into, now push snooze. You don't need to get up and meditate today, or you don't need to, or whatever it is for you. You don't need to go to the gym. You're good.
Right.
And these kinds of things. And so it's a play, it's a game. It needs to be held lightly. There's an interesting new component of brain science that I just learned recently, that there are two states of willpower. There's the willpower where you're like, bearing grit, determination. You can imagine the army sergeant, yelling at you to get down and do 10 more push-ups. And that creates a particular biochemical response in your body that will not enable the growth, that the kind of willpower that you hold easy to, that's aligned with your purpose, that's aligned with your idea of what success is, that comes you just hold a little bit loosely to it. When you're in this state, there's a part of your brain that actually will grow. We're all through it. Like, neuroscientists are thrilled about these moments that they can learn about when your brain grows instead of atrophying. Your brain will grow in the presence of the kind of willpower that comes from ease and joy and love. And it will make future willpower projects easier for you. Mm-hmm. And so I love this, because coupling that kind of easy willpower along with the kind of wiring success into your brain. And then there's another component that I don't really talk about so much in this book, but remember, in the very beginning in our discussion, I said, embrace the magic. Magic will happen. It will come to you, and you won't see it coming, But when you embrace it, now you're really playing the real game. And that's the world of quantum physics. And some of you, we spoke on this. Some of you equate that with your religion, which is lovely. The God of your understanding, there are bigger forces at play. But for the focus of this book, it's really about the things that you can do today to rewire your brain for success and become that powerful, recognized leader that you're really meant to be, that you know deep inside that you're worthy of.
Which really gets to kind of one of the things you speak about a lot, which is standing in your strength or finding your strength, right? That's really what we're trying to get to.
That's right. That's the, my brand, my coaching brand is called Stand in Your Strength Strategies. And that's it. I want people to, when they walk in the room, they take ownership of the ground that they're walking on. They do it with confidence because they've got the clarity of all of the goodness that they're bringing to the table. And they have confidence in their ability to gather to them the success that they're looking for. If we're doing it with certainty, it will work. If we're doing it with doubt, it will not work. I mean, it's just as simple as that.
And what's interesting, we call ourselves Sun Leaders, and the subtitle of your book is A Leadership Guide to Navigating Change. So, I mean, it's wonderful synergy. And without or risking the fear of derailing us, I want to make sure we are including everybody. Are there questions out there anybody has for Janean?
No questions, but I wanted to say, as far as like the definition of success and stuff, and that's something for the last few months that, really I've been challenging myself about. But for instance, at the beginning of the year, I made goals for myself, for the business, everything that was going on. And as I'm, starting to live this, and also working on personal growth, I look at my goals again and I realize that they're really just survival. That like my definition of success at the time is just survival to get by because of everything I'm going through, and realizing that my beliefs are what is keeping me there. Like that's what my beliefs are always keeping me to that point of survival. And that's what my success looks like, because that's how life has been. Right. So now it's figuring out for myself, what does thriving look like? How does that feel? How does that look? And then also challenging the beliefs I have, because, so in your book, it talked about, do things that make you uncomfortable. And, that's what part of those exercises were. Well, I talked about last time about, having kind of a lack of self-love or self-worth. And, what really made me uncomfortable was when you said to write that letter to yourself about how like good you are and how proud you are of yourself. That I had to close the book. I had to stop, because that thought to me was very uncomfortable, because that would be challenging all the beliefs. My friend said it really good. Like, I'm willing to do like everything for everyone else, but for myself, it's hard. So anyway, those kind of exercises were like, whoa, but that's exactly what I need to do to challenge all those beliefs. That way my goals are thriving and not just getting by all the time, So anyways, but yeah, I understand it, because it was just something that, it is really like, it is that definition of success. Like I really thought when making these goals, like, yeah, these are great goals. It's not that they aren't good goals, but it's just, they're not really aligned with my like real success, or like my real purpose, my real, they're all just about getting by. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Adam, that is so gorgeous. I am so thrilled for you on this journey. My own mentor is Dr. Joe Dispenza. I spend a lot of time in his work, and he talks about the emotions of survival. And, as I was just talking about the using emotion to help wire your brain, survival emotions are the lowest frequency. They don't have much power at all. But emotions of creation, now we're talking. And if you kind of go up that ladder to the extent that you can and really rehearse and practice the emotions of joy, what brings you joy? What brings you fulfillment? What brings you appreciation? What brings that level of success? Now, this actually leads into two of the components in the Welcoming Abundance section of the book that I talk about as the battery pack. And that the two batteries that I, keep in my backpack at all times are gratitude and generosity. And it's because it evokes the emotion that's akin to love, and as we talked about last time, we're either, moving toward love or moving away from it. But that's how we can kind of gauge how successful we're being in a way. And for you right now, that's love for yourself. And I couldn't be more proud of you, Adam. I just feel like this is such a worthwhile endeavor for you.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to know, just to follow your own success journey, how things start falling into place for you. The more work that we do on ourselves, the better off our businesses are, our lives are. This is fundamentally true about the companies that Scott and I engage, that we see over and over again. The more a leader is willing to confront their limiting beliefs, the more nimble they are in times of change. When change comes at them, and it does. Look at the external environment that we're in today as business owners. There's so much change going on that we're having to meet the needs of. We can only be nimble and meet change where it is and innovate and be creative when we've done this inner work, when we are coming from a very solid foundation ourselves. And so I just want to commend you, Adam. I just am so thrilled for you to be on this journey.
Well, thank you. I will say that I avoid the work sometimes because it's hard and it's, I have plenty of other things to do, that I can do. So I'm always favoring those things because it is scary to do that work. It is scary to be uncomfortable and doing that. And, I do have a journal that kind of started along with this, but it's, it is just like, facing that real question or facing that it's hard. And it is something that it's slow for me, it's slow, but I'm trying to do it. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. Beautiful. Yes. It's slow. I just wanted to, yes, it is. I want to validate that for you.
Yeah.
It's not an overnight thing. Yeah, exactly, Scott. It's, ups and downs. It's like doing the cha-cha. And that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
As we think of where Adam's at and what he shared with us, is there a way to create time and space, or do we just let the process do its thing?
Well, ideally, what you want to do is collapse time and space. Yes. Now you're into the quantum realm, and this happens when you get good at meditating. Time is an elusive concept insofar as it's a cultural construct. We as North Americans believe that time is linear, that there's a past behind us, a present where we are right now, and a future in front of us. There are other cultures where time is circular, and some cultures where a human being is in the center of the circle, and some where the human being is on the path of the circle. Sometimes time is a spiral, and it's kind of like mind bending to think about, like, what would that perspective be like? How do you operate your world? If you want to meet somebody, how do you meet up with somebody? It's totally mind bending, but it introduces this idea that time is utterly made up. It is, going back to an Einstein component, it is relative to what we're experiencing here. And what we're experiencing here is kind of an illusion. It's totally made up. So, if you're talking time, space, that's what creates the reality that we're in. If we want to change that, we need to move beyond that. And that's the work of getting into the deep quantum realm, which also happens in meditation.
Mm-hmm. Adam, is that helpful?
Yeah, I'll say, because meditation has been suggested, it's hard for me. So it's another thing I need to work on and, spend that time. Like some people told me to do 2 minutes, to start, because
Exactly.
it is,
let's talk about that for a second. Because I really would love to demystify it. Scott is very good at reminding me that there's no such thing as a bad meditation. Any attempt that we have at calming ourselves down is worthwhile. We benefit from it physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. We benefit from it. And that alpha brainwave state that you're looking for, it is simply a deeply relaxed state. Now, we sometimes get that when we're wide awake. We sometimes get it. Have you ever driven home and you're like, I meant to make a stop, but I was on autopilot. Where have I been for the last 20 minutes? You're in an alpha brainwave state because driving after a while becomes an unconscious competence. We can do it, we do it with an awareness, a spatial awareness that doesn't require our executive functioning brain, which is weird, but it's a great example of how when we tap into that operating system, we're actually pretty capable. And so we're highly suggestible in that state, which is also why, people at the end of a day and they're super tired and just like, well, I just want to turn on the TV and relax. But they turn on like the news or some sarcastic sitcom. And after a while, they wonder why they've become bitter in their lives or why they have a, snappy retort to their spouse and with everything and they can't be loving anymore. It's because they're in that tired kind of like dreamy alpha brainwave state and they're inputting this nutrition that's poor, that doesn't serve them. And their brains are fundamentally rewiring with that information. And so if you think about the fact that you do go into this brainwave state simply by relaxing yourself, to meditate, that's really all that means. Like certainly there are deeper ways to go. You go deeper. You go into theta, and it takes a little more work. But to start with, just simply, closing your eyes, sitting still, sitting upright. I didn't talk about this in the book, but I have learned that if you sit upright, you're less likely to fall asleep, and you can train your body to relax while you're still, in your daily life. Close your eyes, just sort of go through your body and relax all of the muscles in your body, muscle by muscle, and then come on out of it. And it's as simple as that. I love the app Insight Timer. It's a free app. There are just hundreds of guided meditations. I love guided meditations. It gives you something to focus on and allows kind of the operating system of your brain to relax. And I really, Scott.
And you can choose your time.
You can
10 minutes before I have to get in the car and go to the next thing, or I've got 20 minutes, or I've got 7 minutes. And you can choose something that matches what you're doing right then. Yeah. And one other thing I'll say about it, just if you give me an opportunity, is that it's easy to think that meditation is emptying your brain and making it so that it's blank and stopping the thought. But really, the exercise, the benefit, the thing that you're winning is every time a thought comes into your mind and you set it aside. That is the meditation. It's not getting past to where they stop coming. It's getting the control to say, not now, and putting it back. So when you're, especially early on, when you're practicing and you're a beginner and you're like, I just keep getting all these thoughts and thinking about what's next. Every time that happens and you're able to set it aside, even for a second, that's the win. That's you taking back control over what's going on in your head. And that's you being able to get to a more calm, centered space because you realize that you have control over that. You're able to set it aside and you're taking deep, deep breaths with it. So don't think that I'm bad at it because I'm still getting thoughts. That's nobody stops getting thoughts. The win is every time you're able to step those aside, even for a second between that one and the next thought, that's the win. and you just collect wins.
Yeah. Carrie, you've got a thought, and then we'll wrap things up, I believe.
Kind of a question, and Scott just mentioned, but because before he said that, I was going to ask you, is if you set to intentionally try to do meditation, and because you even mentioned in some of yours, you're actually having a conversation, so you're not thinking, you're actually having active conversation with your
That's
future
right.
self. But I think my question is it just push it aside, or is it okay to make a note so you don't, it might be something that came and you forgot. Do you ignore that, or do you jot it down and then get back, or what's the best? Because that's my
That's a good question.
always been,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
because a lot of what you're talking about, like I was just actually at a comedy hypnosis show for my friend Denise last night, and she was really talking about debunking, what everybody thinks about hypnosis, and it's nothing more than being in a trance. And to your point, we do it when we get in a car and we don't know how we got home. That's just being in a trance. You're daydreaming. That's being in a trance,
That's right.
and all of that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
when those thoughts come, is it better to,
Yeah.
no, not going to talk about it now, or make a note?
Yeah. Here's my mantra for that, because that's such a good question, because that absolutely happens. You may have an inspired thought in the middle of it, or something you don't want to let go of. I tell myself in that moment, I trust myself that I am smart enough to remember this when the time is right. Now is not that time. And Dr. Joe has a phrase that is another mantra of mine that says, love yourself enough to do this. I have to love myself enough to let those thoughts go for now. Trust that I'll get back to them. But really what's most loving to me is to spend time in that nothing, in that space where I'm not creating per se, and I'm not consuming. I'm just being. And that is a gorgeous place in our lives, in our busy worlds. We're in beta and high beta brainwave frequency, which has a whole chemistry that runs in accordance with it, that if we stay there too long in our lives, it's not good for us. This is where disease starts coming in. We benefit physically from lowering our brainwave frequency periodically. And when you do it on purpose, you can add more boost to that. So let those thoughts go. Trust yourself that you're smart enough to get back to it when the time is right. It's just that the time isn't right when you're meditating.
I want to say something that, something as far as like self-love that I'm starting to realize it's not just about, some things I was reading about was like, dating yourself, doing things for yourself like that. But it's also the discipline for yourself. It is like you were saying, to love yourself enough to put that thought aside, to take care of yourself in the moment. It's not these big extravagant things. It's the small things. It's the discipline.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And it's something that, when coming, to this concept of self-love and figuring out what it really is, it's like, oh, it's not all of this. Sometimes it's just these little things, but these little things compound, I think.
Yeah, they do. They certainly do. Yeah. David.
I have to apologize. I have another meeting I've got to go to right now.
Of course. It was great to have you here.
Discussion, and thank you very much.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
So, can we see the book? Am I holding? Okay, so this is our book, Finding Your Lighthouse, A Leadership Guide to Navigating Change. Janean Merkel Perelstein with Alchemy Academy. And I want to get your final thoughts, Janean. And then I want to know how our listeners that are out there that aren't on the line with us can get in touch with you.
I've mentioned before that there are two perspectives that an anthropologist takes. The emic perspective is the insider's perspective, and the Edic perspective is the outsider's perspective. And we're all operating from emic, and because we're masters of our own lives, we know ourselves very well to the extent that we can. As we mentioned, that some of what we do is invisible because what is usual remains unseen to our lives. And that's really the benefit of a coach. In our culture, kids are enculturated early on to associate coaching with sports, because we know that any elite athlete would be crazy to go to do what they do without a coach. And I believe strongly, I've experienced myself, that any high performance lifestyle is benefited by having a coach. And I don't just say that because I am a coach. I really own that thought and that belief, because I see the benefit of it, because we simply cannot see what we cannot see. And with that, I just want to plant that seed that, whether we have amazing coaches in this community, Eric being one of them, myself, we've got other, Nicole Waters, we've got other people stepping into this space that are really lovely at helping others, helping guide others through the transformation process. And I just want to highly, highly recommend that moving forward, if you want to embark on a real journey of change, consider that. How you can get in touch with me, alchemyacademy.com. I'm available through the Sun Leaders website. I've got contact information there. I'm often at the meetings and out and about at different events in town. I welcome the conversation. I'd love to sit down and see with anybody and see how this kind of work can bring you joy and success in your lives.
Excellent. And you're also available for speaking engagements, correct?
Absolutely. Speaking is a love of mine. I enjoy getting to share my wisdom with crowds. So much fun for me. So yes, any opportunity to do that. I'm available also for lunch and learns for your team, for your company and your business.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate you sharing your gift with us and your book with us. It's been 3 hearty discussions, and I look forward to future discussions as we have the chance to work together. And to everybody here online, your energy is always important to us, and I thank you for being with us today.